Good Monday afternoon. Thanks for joining us on KARE 11 News Now. I'm Lou Raguse. Voters will hit the polls tomorrow morning for special primaries to fill 2 open Minnesota Senate seats. The primary will determine the DFL nominee for former Democratic Senator Nicole Mitchell's seat. She resigned after her felony burglary conviction last month. On the DFL side, there are 2 current state representatives, Ethan Chaw and Amanda Hemmingson Yeager. The winner will face the only Republican candidate, Dwight Dora. Meanwhile, there's another special primary in Senate District 29 to fill Republican Senator Bruce Anderson of Buffalo's seat after he suddenly died last month. There are 3 Republicans vying for the nomination. The winner will go on to face the sole Democrat. Both special elections are set for November 4th. Developing today, 2 people are in the hospital with life-threatening injuries after a hit-and-run crash. It happened at 5th Avenue South and Lake Street around midnight, hurting a bicyclist and a pedestrian. Our crews saw shoes and a dented bike lying in the middle of the street, as well as clothes and other debris on the pavement. No other information is available at this time. Happening today, the class of 2029 is moving into the University of Minnesota. It comes as a major strike from 1,400 union workers faces a pivotal step. Teamsters Local 320 will begin voting on the school's so-called final offer tomorrow. Those service workers, including those in maintenance and food service, say that the university is offering them a 3% wage increase, which is less than the 3.5% offered to other workers on campus. The negotiating committee is recommending that they reject the offer. The university says they want to avoid a strike because it would harm the community, including employees. Today, the trial begins for Minnesota's 2016 Teacher of the Year who is accused of sexually assaulting a child. Abdul Wright is accused of grooming an 8th grade English student in 2017 at Harvest Best Academy, then having sexual interactions with her for a year. Wright has not been employed in that district since 2021. A new development overnight, National Guard troops patrolling the streets of Washington, D.C. are now armed. Guards were seen carrying their service pistols, and a small number of troops will now carry their service M4 rifles. It comes just days after Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth authorized troops to bear weapons for self-defense. Despite being armed, White House officials say the troops are still not allowed to make arrests. Anti-violence advocate Ronald Moten says the federal takeover is not the right way to approach an issue.
Well, there's no collaborating with the community. The community feels like there's an occupation. Most of us believe that we do need police in our community, but the way it's being done is not the right way. Putting fear in the community only stops the community from working with law enforcement. And what we're seeing is criminals are getting smarter. The community is getting they're being traumatized. And this is not a long-term solution. And most of the people who are being locked up are not the violent criminals that we want off the street. They're petty crimes. We're filling the prisons up for optics, and that's not the solution.
Recently, President Trump said that he's considering a similar deployment of National Guard in other major cities such as New York, Chicago, and Baltimore. Chicago leaders denounced this plan, with Democrats saying they will sue if the administration moves forward in spite of their objections.
The fact that he's not embracing the collaboration that you usually do to deploy the National Guard, communicating to the governor, means that it's another step towards authoritarianism, that he's operating as a dictator, turning the military against the American citizens in cities on American land is unprecedented, and it's unheard of.
Happening today, the man who was wrongfully deported to El Salvador earlier this year and finally freed last week is back in ICE custody. Maryland resident Kilmar Abrego Garcia was released on Friday after spending months in a notorious Salvadoran mega prison. Now, authorities say they want to deport him to Uganda, a country he has no connection with, after he declined an offer to be deported to Costa Rica in return for pleading guilty to human smuggling charges. NBC's Gary Grumbach has more from Baltimore.
Kilmar Abrego Garcia has been taken into ICE custody in the building behind me during an ICE check-in that he had this morning just before 8 a.m. His attorney, Simon Sandoval Motionberg, came out shortly after the meeting and explained that during the meeting, they asked why he was being detained. They got no answer. They asked if they were going to be able to get paperwork about his detainment. They got no commitment on that. They asked where he was being sent to, what detention center. they got no answer on that. But there were several points in terms of what the deal could have been, this plea deal between Kilmer Abrego Garcia and the Department of Justice. Several different options here that seemed to be on the table at the beginning of the day. First was he would plead guilty to the federal charges against him in Tennessee and then be deported to Costa Rica after serving a sentence. The second option was to be deported to Uganda as soon as Wednesday. And the third option, which it seems most likely that his attorneys are heading towards, is to fight the deportation to Uganda to ensure he has a due process before he's deported anywhere out of the U.S. Back to you.
Today, we're learning that 5 journalists were among those killed in the Israeli strike on the hospital in southern Gaza. Gaza officials say an attack on Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis left 20 people dead. Among them were journalists from Reuters, Associated Press, Al Jazeera, and the Middle East Eye. At least 192 journalists have been killed since the Israel-Hamas war started October 7th, 2023. Happening right now, several countries around the world suspend postal services to the U.S. amid confusion over the new import regulations. This comes after President Trump signed the executive order last month promising an end to tax exemptions on low-value goods coming into the U.S. This rule that allowed packages to enter duty-free if they were less than $800 is set to expire this Friday. NBC's Brian Chung tells us more.
This morning, global mail carriers suspending deliveries to the U.S. amid confusion over new import duties.
I won't be able to send you anything. Hopefully we can get this kind of figured out soon. I don't know what you guys are doing over there.
Postal services in Australia, India, New Zealand, the UK, and parts of Europe say they will stop shipping parcels to the States before the end of a trade exemption known as de minimis, which since 2016 had allowed goods worth up to $800 to enter the U.S. duty-free. But per an executive order signed by President Trump last month, goods coming in from abroad less than $800 will be slapped with country-specific tariff rates starting Friday.
The vast majority of my customer base is in the US. I can't pass this on to my customers. So as of last night, I've had to close my store completely,
leaving small businesses and consumers concerned about shipping backlogs.
And with the couriers, we just don't know what's going to be happening.
DHL, one of the world's largest courier companies, will stop accepting parcels destined for the U.S. starting today, citing unresolved key questions about the process.
That just adds more uncertainty into an already very confusing picture around tariffs and how they're going to impact us here in the United States.
The change could cost consumers a staggering $13 billion overall. The costs break down $80 per item for countries with a tariff rate of less than 16%, $160 per item for countries with rates between 16 and 25%, and $200 per item for countries with rates above 25%. Those small dollar costs amounting to big picture concerns for the economy, as Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell signaled late last week that rate cuts could be on the horizon.
The shifting balance of risks may warrant adjusting our policy stance.
Besides global impacts, tariffs are placing pressure on local vendors here in the United States as well. Some sellers say that they now rely on global goods that have become more expensive. Reporting from San Antonio, Devin Karp tells us more.
The Farmer and Makers Market at the Pearl might be a relaxing way for folks to spend their weekend. But for the vendors, it's the most important stretch of a long week of work.
We put the time into the drink. We don't take shortcuts.
Take that template, throw it on a piece of hardwood, use a router, and create that leg.
So it's pretty much all of your everyday home essentials that I do non-toxic swaps for. So
business has been good in San Antonio, they say. The summer season treated them well, bringing in lots of customers, but behind the scenes, some things have gotten a lot more expensive.
We source our matcha from Kyushu, Japan, so the southern region of Japan.
Tariffs from the United States can have a big local impact. A 15% tariff rate on Japan has hurt Marissa and her business.
The farms we're working with were like, hey, we need to mail this out by this date, because if we don't, that's going to go from 15 to 24, potentially 34%. And it was really scary.
A new executive order from President Trump will end the de minimis rule this Friday. It allows foreign packages worth less than $800 to enter the country duty-free. While it's already been suspended for China and Hong Kong, it's now going to hit the rest of the world.
But I choose to buy quality material because I try to produce a quality product for my client.
honestly, I'm so glad that I decided to source locally and use beeswax from a bee farm.
Dusty and Hannah say getting materials locally has helped their peace of mind and bottom line.
Well, it's helped me because my price hasn't changed. The material that I buy isn't cheap.
But it isn't just as easy as buying local. They say any business switching their supply needs to do their homework.
I would honestly just say research and then reaching out to people and just knowing your sources, knowing where they get their stuff, knowing how they make it, knowing who's touching it, who's making it, who's shipping. That's your best bet.
And a focus on shopping and selling locally goes a long way.
And I really don't think we would be in the position that we are now without the Pearl. It's such a platform and it's such a community, and there's just trust within San Antonio.
Devin Kirk, KSAT 12 News.
Stick with us. More news and weather is coming up after the break.